Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly Q&A thing. This is season 14, episode 26. Do you want to explain to the people what they're looking at if they're watching the video?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Even before we get into that, one thing I wanted to mention is that the computer's fixed.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
It's the power supply, which I thought it was originally, but because the old power supply was giving the right numbers when it wasn't hooked up, the repair guy thought it wasn't the problem. Ultimately, that was the problem. I had an extra... Is that funny? I had an extra power supply on hand.
Yeah, that's not a usual thing to own. Why did you have a second power supply?
So when I looked it up, our old computer, the previous desktop that had run for the better part of, I think, 11 years, which is pretty good for desktop.
Yeah.
With, casual upgrades.
Well, that's long enough that you'd expect components to be failing in them.
But one of the things that failed early was the power supply. And back then, when I was a bit more footloose and fancy-free, I had the time and the luxury of diagnosing and fixing problems myself. And I was able to change the power supply out and get, I think like 5 more years out of it. Mm-hmm. It failed earlier. And so when I kept my eye out, I saw that there were cycles for power supplies. I'd read a lot about the good ones and how they are components that tend to last. So that if I needed another one, it would be nice to have one on hand if I'd been able to pick one up on sale for a brand and a model that I thought was good and was powerful enough for what I wanted to do. So the power supply, the good news is, the power supply that I got was 750 watts. The one that was built in to the original desktop was 650. And if only the original power supply had been modular. So there's different ways that they sell power supplies. They sell power supplies with all the wires coming out of it. And they can sell power supplies with little sockets. So you can hook wires to each part that you need. And so a modular one is really handy because what you can do is you can just swap out the unit and you don't have to actually rewire everything. Mm-hmm. You can just plug it into the new unit.
Yeah, all the cables are sort of where they should be already.
Right. So the problem was that the old power supply was not. It was a bit of a mess. And so instead of spending, I guess, a couple hours, I took it into the shop just in case there was something else, because I didn't want to spend all that time putting all the, rethreading all the wires through it where it needed to be.
Then have it not work.
Right.
That's always a horrible feeling, right? When you do all the extra work of trying something and it just doesn't.
And listen, like I said, when I was younger and footloose and fancy-free, I was happier to just do that kind of stuff because it felt like it was worth it, and it just wasn't. So we've got our computer back. We've got some of the footage for our outro back, which is nice. So hopefully, knock on wood, this was not a good year for our computers, 2025.
Mm-hmm. Not the best.
Not the best. All right, so what you're watching is Dawn of Justice Superman. And he is, because the season is the season of upcoming challenge characters, he is who we expect to be the challenge character this week, Thursday. And what I'd like to do is come at him fresh, because normally we have sort of notes that we've accumulated over time on each challenge character. And we do that summary. We'll be doing that summary in the weekly recap on Thursday. But coming to him fresh again, there's certain impressions that I have. And one is that his multi-hit special 2 is really good. Lots of spaces in between the hits. Less damage is wasted. Each of the hits does a decent amount of damage. And any of the hits feels like they can knock out the opponent. Main problem I feel like is that the first hit, the punch, is not fully ranged. So that means sometimes you can miss if you've got enough distance between you and the opponent. And the funny thing that I tried a few other sort of options, right? With making him the specialist, 10 to a Master's Death card as a given. I thought, you know what? He's got the passive that shatters gear for part of the fight, even if they tag out. But it's only a chance. So it felt like maybe we don't need to use Claw of Horus anywhere and just rely on that. The problem is that it requires an unblocked special. It needs to do some unblocked damage. Mm-hmm. So not only is it a percent only of the times you do a special, it's not 100%. It's also negated if they block. So I've actually given him Claw of Horus. It stacks so that you can do both the Claw of Horus, Gear Shatter, and your own. And what's funny, all right, so you might notice on a few of the fights. So the animation for his passive gear shatter is at the beginning of the special 2.
Mm-hmm.
And what's neat about that is that you can get the effect of his special 2 from his passive to shatter all the gears before it happens. So somebody with Astro Harness,
you skip it even if you knock them down.
Right. Which I love.
So the health threshold, I should say.
Right. And the other neat thing is, so normally the Claw of Horus animation is the end of special 1.
Mm-hmm.
If you're tagging in using Claw of Horus with the Master's Death card, it's the second tag in where you're leveraging Claw of Horus to have an attempt at shattering every thing that's flying in from Master's Death card.
Mm-hmm.
You get this wild kind of animation at the beginning where it looks like it's both of them at the same time, and it's just almost like that. You know when you have that, it's almost like a strobe effect when you're watching, say, a helicopter on film, and the rotation of the helicopter blades is somewhat a little bit almost in sync with the frame rate.
I do, yeah.
And then the blades look like they're not moving.
Then there's also that thing that happens because of rolling shutter, where you end up having that weird warped sort of bendy look at the blades.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay,
so it does that sort of thing too. So you'll know that. So then you still get the visual cues to know when the stuff that you want to happen is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like him. He's a lot of fun. I don't know if there's a lot of synergy to be had with the other Dawn of Justice characters. So he's right now still, we're using him with Rebirth Raven and Hawk Girl just to make him look really good. He'd still be really good without them, but it's hard to give up some of the advantages that you get from being able to tag in and tag out really quickly and being able to manage the opponent's power generation to protect yourself from any kind of damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there we go. And you had one thing that you want to talk about in real life. This is something that you get excited about.
So it's all right. So
the start is not as exciting, but
so I think I got to explain. So the exciting thing is that I got another offer from the 407. So if you live in the Greater Toronto area, or the GTA as we like to call it, there is a toll road. There's not a lot of toll roads in Canada. I don't think.
Very few, yeah.
And there's a 407, and part of it is privately owned, and privately leased, and part of it is publicly owned. And I guess in order to explain sort of the history of it and why it sort of matters a little bit, is that back in the 90s, it was built by the government. It was supposed to be charging tolls. It was supposed to be a new model for highways
financing,
construction and financing, right? So that instead of being a free highway from the very beginning, it would be a toll road, so that the first 30 years or 35 years of drivers would pay tolls, they would pay off the cost of it, and then after that it would be free.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be free sometime, I guess, in 2032, I guess. It should have been originally. But
was it 2032? Was that late?
It was like 30-something years, maybe. Yeah, it was coming up. Like, it felt like it was going to be forever, but it feels like definitely it's going to be forever when you take into account the fact that the conservative provincial government at the time, under Mike Harris, in order to balance their books, because they don't care when they're the government for a short term, right, for a 4-year term, they don't care about long-term stuff. They just want to make stuff look good and be able to claim that they're doing really good and show that their books are balanced. And who knew back then that it wouldn't matter? You could just lie about stuff and people would lap it up.
Mm-hmm.
But back then people thought, yeah, you'd have to at least tell the truth. So, or some version of the truth. And so they sold it off to consortium. They didn't technically sell it off, actually. What they did was they leased it for 99 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so the consortium has been charging ever increasing rates. And so now in the new year, they've raised the rates one more time, so that I think they're going to hit at certain peak times $1 a kilometer.
Wow.
Right.
That's pretty bad.
Okay. And I remember back when it was like 4 cents, 4 cents, and it was negligible, and it was totally worth taking all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So in the last year, 407 has gotten around to giving different offers to accounts to try to entice people to drive more. And they typically were variations of free, or you pay free morning rush hour, free afternoon rush hour, or free only after you spend a certain amount, or free at certain times during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd gotten various offers. To me, the value is greatest for the evenings. And I got it for a 3-month chunk. And after that was different offers for the morning. So finally, and they're doing 3-month chunks. So finally I got another offer for just 1 month. It was January, and I need to spend $10 minimum for the month. But then after that, all the morning and afternoon, evening rush hours would be free.
That's pretty good.
That's amazing. And so on the evening rush hours, I can save a half hour. Now, part of me thinks like it has the feeling of being the way they're doing it, right? Like different offers to different people. Like on Red Flag Deals, a Canadian deal site, there's lots of people who talk about which kind of deals they get. And the variations of the deals they're all sort of basically three main deals.
Mm-hmm.
Either morning rush hour, morning and evening rush hour, or all day,
mm-hmm.
from as low as I think free, which is really uncommon.
Yeah.
But mostly the lowest is $5,
mm-hmm.
going as high as like $800 that people have reported.
For like the max cost before everything after that is free?
Yeah. Which is ridiculous to me, right?
$800 for a single month.
Yeah.
Feels like more than you'd reasonably be expecting to spend anyways,
sure.
Right?
So my theory is that it has less to do with maximizing costs. Because in my mind, like most stores, if they have an option where you have like unlimited, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's to see at what point they can offer you something that you would pay for a service that you would not have otherwise used.
Yeah.
But I think there's something a little subtly different with this, because 407 is probably profitable without any other offers, with just the people who are riding it.
Yeah.
And the consortium that bought the lease is making money hand over fist.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that there are volume requirements before potential penalties kick in, that in the original lease contract, the Ontario government's allowed to administer.
Mm.
The funny thing is, though, we learned about all these during the pandemic when the volume cratered with all people who were working from home and didn't go into the office.
Yeah.
So there was apparently the opportunity to charge a bunch of penalties, like millions of dollars worth of penalties, and the Ford government decided not to.
Interesting.
So, I mean, part of me wonders if there was some sort of consideration given for the fact that it was something completely out of their control, which I think is
unprecedented
reasonable.
Circumstances.
Right.
It was not expected.
Right. But now that if there's the same kind of ongoing requirements, their interest is in what is the cheapest they can do to goose the volume as much as possible.
Mm.
And
so they might just need to get a certain number of people in the door and driving in order for them to not be losing money.
Right. So they don't need to necessarily charge as much as they can for each new person that they get driving. And it's not that big a difference, right? But they just need to, what would it take to get the most volume out of, so the people who will, there's the biggest difference between no deal and how many rides you take on 407, and some deal and how many more. So I think the important part would be just like to use it as much as possible
mm-hmm.
at every opportunity they can at no charge.
And I'm sure there's also like an aspect of market research there that they're doing, and like data collection in terms of offering differential deals and seeing like user behavior, right?
Oh, yeah,
there's some value to that data for them above and beyond.
Yeah. Oh,
no.
no.
So it's probably a 2 birds with 1 stone situation.
The thing is, though, that they've been doing it for at least a year.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of data. And it's interesting to me that what they're doing now is they're shortening the period of time of the offer so they can get a little bit more granularity. But I think that might be a mistake too, because as I'm looking at my own driving behavior, like certain months I'm taking time off, certain days, like there's just so much more variation within a month.
Yeah.
Especially with the season. But I think that's where it's going to come to. And I think that the less you drive when you don't have an offer, and the more you drive when you do, is potentially going to be what makes a difference, because there's so many people who are using it already and getting really crappy offers or no offers at all.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if somebody's already paying money, right?
Yeah.
Why would you take less money from them? You really want to capture new audience.
Right.
This is more of like a customer acquisition cost, if anything.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting. So I'm really looking forward to it. Driving home saves a half hour. But I tell you what, it's not worth it enough to give up any possibility of another offer to drive it when I have to pay full price.
So that they've sort of created a perverse incentive for you where if there's no offer, what you're trying to do is generate a future offer by making sure that you never drive it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, because of the way they've raised the prices,
yeah,
not
you wouldn't
driving
be doing it at full price anyways.
Couldn't justify it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there we go. Our first comment of the week comes from the Nadroj 10. And they say, anyone got new challenge for December 18th that won't appear on my phone? And there's also a related one from Zensor FN. And they say, I got problem. The breakthrough mode and the phantom zone is not appearing and I'm on iOS. Can anyone help?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this a bunch in our weekly recaps and the glitches that people use. I still believe, I mean, this is one of those things that I can't really prove, but I still believe that the main reason this happens is because your device is communicating with the server and it is communicating
different
times than what it should be based on your location. And when that happens, events, which are challenge, breakthrough, phantom zone, that basically covers all of it. Those are almost like the perfect 2 questions to cover all that.
Yeah.
Will not show up when they're supposed to.
I guess maybe shop packs?
Maybe. I don't know about that. I never paid attention because people mostly don't complain about it pack being missing because they don't.
Well, yeah, you don't know. You don't know what's supposed to be there.
Right.
It mattered more when the discount gold packs weren't showing up. Right.
And that was actually a good indicator for why that matters, right? Because the discount gold pack would show up each time you shifted your date, like a new one, so that people would buy them ahead of time. But the problem would be some people did not realize that it was just a day. They would skip a week. And each time they skipped a week, they would be erasing the gold packs up to that point. So then they would have a bunch all at once, but then they would stop getting them for a long, long time. Yeah. Unless they kept on shifting. I'm not sure that there is a great solution. A lot of the times the answer is putting your clock back to normal. But once the game has decided that you are out of sync and doesn't want to give you events, that often isn't enough. One other answer might be if you've got a backup, but also if you trust the WBID save, uninstall, reinstall, relog back into your WBID. The risk is if the Warner Brothers servers does not have your details correctly, that you'll lose progress. But the potential benefit is getting things back in sync because sometimes just switching out is not enough, and you need to make sure that you have switched out from that you have the right time for the very beginning, and very beginning means the installation. And that's no guarantee that it'll fix it because we do not have, this is one of the things that we actually advise against. So this is not one of those things that we've tested how to fix it.
Yeah. So there we go. The next comment comes from Oblivion_machine, and they say, Jessica Cruz is my main, and I'm so happy you see her versatility in OP combo ender and special too.
Yeah, there are definitely a few characters.
Well, the first thing I think that's kind of fun about this, or interesting, is you calling her your main, right? Because main is like a fighting game, or like multiplayer game in general term.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a PvP term, basically. Where you have a main. So there's, Mitsurugi is my main in Soul Calibur, right?
Keelik is mine.
Yeah, Keelik is yours. So
Ken and Ryu are my main. It used to be Guile because it was so easy to do his crouch.
Yeah, so it's the main character that you play as.
Yeah.
And so this, is a fighting game. So in a lot of ways it makes sense for there to be a main. But because of the way that the energy system and the team system works, it's also kind of funny and weird for you to have a main because, you're not only playing with them in basically any fight ever, right? You've got two other people on your team. And also, if you play with them a lot without using recharges of some kind, playing with them a lot means that you can't play with them a lot, right? Like you drain their energy. So it was just funny seeing the term main. It's both this is the correct context and specifically the correct context, and also a weird correct context in both ways. Well, because of the way that this is a fighting game, I was not expecting that verbiage.
It speaks to a different kind of way to play, right? Because either it means that you don't play a lot, or that you prioritize like the playing of this particular character over every other aspect of, say, collecting stuff, playing more.
Or you just mean main and that this is your favorite character to play, which is, I think, a relatively common way of talking about it. But, you know, for example, like Super Smash Bros., right? When you talk about tournaments, mains are often the people that you expect people to be.
Right.
So, like, I think, like, Hungry Box mains Jigglypuff or whatever, stuff like that. There's this guy named Awesome Sauce who is a Yoshi main. So that's the information is it's a character that you associate with a certain player.
Right.
And when you call somebody your main, that's yourself. So Oblivion Machine, Jessica Cruz is their gal.
Right. And I think it might have been season 12 that we did just all our favorite characters. So we have a bunch of mains then. Like there's just a bunch of teams that we love.
I don't know if they're mains anymore. We've got like 5 of them or more.
We had maybe 20.
Yeah.
Was it 20?
I think that's too many.
But they are so good. I mean, this is one of the
things... For
a
lot of games, there's not even like 20 characters in a roster.
I know. This is one of the reasons why I think Injustice is such a great game, though. Because it normally when there's a pay-to-play structure where in order to play more, you have to pay more money. They don't usually give you this outlet of... Instead of playing with the character that you used to that is really good, they force you to play with a bunch of other good characters, and it makes you realize, like, this is what happens when we do a weekly recap. We play all the challenge characters. Some of them are still just as crappy as our first impressions, and some of them are a bit of a revelation. They show you just how good they are when you start playing with them. So it's fine to me. This is one
forcing breadth, maybe, of play.
Yeah. And because... again, unless you want to just keep on using recharges and using the same characters over and over and over, what it does is it encourages you to really explore the game in a way and enjoy the game in a way, discover things about it, and appreciate more parts of the game than you would otherwise. Most pay-to-play games force you... Like, this is one of the problems I had, I think, with... I can't even remember now. The Injustice 2. Because the mechanic of getting something while you weren't playing... was encouraging you not to play. Whereas this, there's no sort of weird incentive structure like that. And when you run out of energy, it encourages you to get a bigger roster, play with your the rest of your roster, and discover that, holy heck, there's a bunch of characters that are really good.
Yeah, I think my one problem with a lot of mobile games really is that there's that undercurrent of sort of manipulation, where their goal is to get you addicted, right? That's where you have the daily rewards. That's the way that you have enticing offers with the currency. That's the whole structure of the in-app purchases often. And we've mentioned this before, but it is really a boon to Injustice that their monetization is bad enough and expensive enough that there's not really nearly the same pull for the average player to spend money. And I'm sure that there might be some portion of the term is whales, right? There's this really small percentage of people who contribute the primary amount of monetary value to a game.
Right.
So I'm sure there were, and maybe even are still some people who are putting a significant amount of money into the game.
Right.
But there's a lot of games where the monetization is squeezing every single player.
Right.
And it's noticeable in the outcome. And I think the two things are that, one, this is like advertising essentially for the console games. Right. This gets to be as a tie-in, not the primary product, and therefore it doesn't need to necessarily be a source of income by itself.
It doesn't have the same drivers.
Yeah.
They don't have the same motivation the same way.
So that's thing number one. And the second thing, it really is just that they've done the monetization in a weird enough way that the vast majority of stuff I would never, ever, ever consider purchasing.
Well, to me, the biggest one is they've sort of... What's the opposite of optimize?
De-optimized? I don't know.
So when they give you... They have a pack with a challenge character to pay for it the week before it comes, just before it's available, is the opposite of optimization. Because if they're going to optimize it, what you do is you offer characters to buy that aren't available.
Yeah,
did you miss them for the challenge?
Yeah.
Yeah, or the week after where they're gone already and they're not going to be back for another year and people want them. that would make so much more sense to drive people to want to buy it.
Yeah. So but I'm not mad at it. Ultimately,
no,
I think
not at all.
It's good.
I love the fact that there's any kind of, to me, any purchase I make is because I love the game.
Yeah.
And it's a totally voluntary purchase, and I get to feel good about the game instead of feeling, that there's that whole, the way addiction is described, right? That you only ever get high the one time. Not necessarily true, but it's really just that you're always chasing that first high. And every other high after that is not nearly as clean and not as satisfying, because part of it isn't that you want to feel good. Part of it is that you want to stop feeling bad. Yeah. So, love you, Injustice Mobile.
So there you go. Maybe we'll do one more quick. This one from Andre Sigh says, "Can I get an hacked account for free, please? The game's so tough."
Yeah, I think that's part of the point. I guess there's different parts, right? I think we've broken it down to what the game is. It's both a collecting game and it's a sandbox game.
And it's also a fighting game sometimes.
Well, I guess that's how it is a sandbox game, where you get to decide, figure out what parts of the fighting game you can put together to do it. And I guess if you really only want to play the fighting part, then you do want all the stuff to be able to try the different things, because it's all the sandbox part of it, right?
Yeah, because there's a real sort of break between the very early game where you're just playing through the story and grinding up primarily, and there's a million things and you've got a million goals, and what you really just need is more time, more credits, more progress, better guys, more copies of everything, right? As soon as you get a gear, you need 100 more gear just to shatter them. As soon as you get a character, you need a bunch more copies of that character to make them better. So it's just there's always, you're being pulled in a bunch of different directions, and ultimately you need as many power credits as you can possibly get your hands on, and you've got a bunch of different holes that you can toss them into. And then the late game, once you've sort of beaten the story, there's not nearly as much of an external push to do any one specific thing, except for collect the stuff that you want. And there are still those sort of micro goals in terms of like online play and playing more in a certain month to get the rewards and stuff like that. But you're getting stuff to get more stuff to get more stuff more easily. There's no real, you're not working your way through a set and organized series of challenges on your way up. Everything is sort of laid out before you, and you're doing as much as you want to get as much stuff as you want until you feel like you're done.
Okay, and I did not think it would be so much an appreciation of Injustice as it's turning out to be, but that's also one place where the game is really well designed, because if you get too many things too quickly, you will not be any good at using those things that you've got. Which is another way of saying that the people who actually hack the game without playing it are very bad at the game in terms of planning the teams.
Yeah, because like how the gear fit together. If you get one gear at a time and you slowly get better, and you've got a handful of gear, and you have to choose which one you want to make better, right? You are unlocking and powering up sort of puzzle pieces that you can slot in however you want and see how it changes stuff.
You're thinking about the game, the hours that you put into it teach you about the game and the nuances. It is really interesting because, I mean, this is, again, a microcosm of, say, the Injustice YouTube world, which has clearly died down a lot, but that there would be people who would spend a lot of time showing off hacked and maxed out accounts, but wouldn't be very good at demonstrating how to play it. And we were sort of one of the weird in-betweens. We did a bunch of glitches. We didn't do hacks, but we did a bunch of glitches that would advance your progress, but not nearly fast enough, I think, to spoil the game. At least it didn't for me.
Well, I think it's also the tempo that we got them in, right? The first glitch, we've definitely talked about this before, but the first glitch being the challenge reset glitch, which all that you do is play more and get rewards at the faster rate for the entire time you're playing, as opposed to a faster rate once a month and then slower rate for the rest of the time you're playing. And so that one was good. And then by the time there was that infinite credits glitch...
Oh my god.
And you could just have everything. That happened much later. And so it didn't spoil that sort of curve for us. That there was a point in the curve where I think there is probably something to be said where there's a point in the curve where you've had a bunch of stuff drip fed to you. You've got a bunch of gear. You have a bunch of challenge characters. You started to build a collection. You have a collection of golds large enough that you could just rotate through them and never have to stop playing.
Right.
Because by the time you were done with your last gold team, you could swap in the first one that you played with in terms of energy.
Yeah.
There's that point where I think there probably is a bit of a slog where if you want to collect everything, you're just collecting and collecting and collecting. And there's just hundreds and thousands of hours ahead of you. And that was the point where we used the credit glitch. So I think it shortcutted a chunk of game that had less learning involved and that had less of that natural progress curve involved.
Right.
Yeah. So there we
go.
go.
The short answer is no, not from us.
Yeah.
But the longer answer is that it's an interesting question and an interesting point.
Well, we just yapped about it. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's loosely connected to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
But anyways, to finish up, we would like to give a huge thank you to our lovely patrons on Patreon. That is Michael Devries, Irvin, Ruiz, Hoshi127, Nora Klimek, and Miguel, who are supporting us on the credited level. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.